Anyways, so in the next gag, Aaliyah ends up completely dropping from the experiment altogether. And this was such a rookie move. Some of y'all may drag me in the comments, but I don't care. Aaliyah, you literally missed a free, all expense paid vacation to Mexico. Hi everyone, my name is Dimitri and welcome back to DimitriTube. Love is Blind episodes 1 through 4. Let's talk about it. As always, if you're enjoying my videos, please go ahead and pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. I'm a growing YouTuber and the likes and subscribes really help me out. Okay, so just a few things before we get started on the review. First, if you hear a little bit of popping in the background, I'm making fish sticks. Next, Jackie and Josh from season 4 broke up. So I very much heard about this. I didn't read about it and try to find out why. I didn't really care enough to do that. But just from what we saw on season 4 in the reunion, this was just not surprising at all. But I will say I am surprised at how long they lasted. They lasted like about 2 years or like just over 2 years. And it may be just me, but I found it rather convenient that they broke up right before the start of season 5. But either way, it's great promo for Netflix that they don't have to do. Next, I cannot put my finger on it, but something about this season just has a different feel or different vibe from other seasons. Like, I don't know exactly what it is, but something is a little different. And let me know below in the comments, do y'all think this season is going to be better than season 4? To me, season 4 set the bar so high, and I just really don't see this season being better than that, but you never know. Maybe Netflix will surprise us. Let me know below in the comments if you think this season is going to be better than season 4. Next, this is the longest we have been in the pods ever. Usually by episode 4, we are already in Mexico drinking margaritas, but episode 4 is already done and we're still not in Mexico. Netflix, you need to do better. Let's be real. None of these people are meant to be together. So let's just ship them off to Mexico, have them start drinking tequila and making poor choices. I'm ready for it. They've already made enough poor choices in the pods. Let's move on and make more poor choices in Mexico. Yay, my fish sticks are done. One more thing I want to point out, the contestants are way more cognizant about their edits this season. Everyone is trying to get a good edit, and it's very clear to me that when the camera's around and when their mics are on, they're being very careful about how they treat others and the things they say because they're not trying to be villainized. You can see this in Aaliyah, Stacy, Izzy does this somewhat. It's just the natural order of reality TV. This is season 5, and the contestants very much know that if they get a bad edit or a villain edit, they will be demonized on the internet, and they're trying to avoid that. And don't get me wrong, I still think this season will be good, but this is just one of the bad things that the internet has done to reality TV. The internet is like policing the behavior of people on reality TV now, and it makes people not want to be themselves as much. And last thing before we get started, does Nick Lachey look better? I can't put my finger on it, but he looks better from the previous seasons. Like, did he lose weight or did he get a better makeup artist or something? Something about him just looks better. Let's start with Izzy. And the ladies love Izzy this season. And I don't blame them. Izzy is a very attractive man. But Izzy is the perfect example of how online dating just completely ruins people. Izzy is insecure about having a bald head, and it's wild because he is so hot. And yes, I get it. Some guys are sensitive about hair loss, and he did lose his hair at an early age. At time of filming, he was only 29 and he's already bald. But there are so many women out there that love a bald head and a beard. Yes, there's some women who are not attracted to that look, but there are plenty of women who are and plenty of women who just don't care. Next, if you made it this far in the video, please go ahead and pound that like button for the YouTube algorithm. And at one point, Izzy says he's insecure about possibly being rejected based on his looks, which is a reality of this show. But to see a guy as attractive as him be worried about that, like as a third person viewing doing this on camera, it looks wild. And it is very clear to me that this man has been rejected multiple times on the apps due to how he looks. But just in general, the way the apps are set up, it's very superficial and a lot of it is based on looks. But now Izzy is carrying that over to being on this show where looks are not supposed to matter. Next, it is very clear to me that Izzy has done a lot of dating. He knows how to talk to women, he knows how to court women, and it's obvious because he was able to court 3 different women while he was in the pods. But one major flaw with Izzy is that he enjoys dating and he likes the easygoingness, but when things get hard, he bails. And we're gonna talk about him bailing more later in the video, but this is another clear sign to me that he uses the apps and he uses the apps a lot. Because with the apps, now there is more options than ever, and whenever dating gets hard, it's so easy to bail, and it's clear Izzy has taken advantage of that. Instead of focusing and sticking with one person when things get hard, he chooses to bail. Okay, now let's talk about Izzy's dates. So Izzy dates Lydia, Johnie, and Stacy. And we can start with Lydia. Lydia is a 30-year-old geologist from Puerto Rico, and she is so desperate that it is embarrassing to watch. Like, I was cringing watching her at multiple points. So many times in the pods and in confessionals and then talking with the other ladies at the house, she tells herself and other people, I'm deserving of love, I deserve love, love is there for me, blah, blah, blah. And it's just so cringy to watch. And when Lydia and Izzy they connected very well. It did feel natural to me, but at the same time, it felt very speed date-ish. They got along well and they seemed to have a few things in common, but to me, the chemistry just really was not there. And we really don't see that much of Lydia and Izzy together, but Lydia eventually tells Izzy that he is her number one. And then after that, the time together between Lydia and Izzy starts getting very clunky, and this is the first sign of Izzy bailing as soon as he has to make a decision or as soon as things get hard. So Izzy ends up breaking up with Lydia, and during the breakup, Lydia asks Izzy,
just please tell me why. There has to be a reason.
And when Lydia said that, I was like, girl. The secondhand embarrassment that I had for this woman at that point was off the charts. Lydia, you shot your shot and it did not work out. Please do not sit around and be like,
oh my God, why didn't you pick me?
The next person Izzy dated that I want to talk about is Stacy, or as I nicknamed her, Eyebrows. Y'all, I'm sorry, Stacy's eyebrows were a mess. They're supposed to be cousins, not twins. And anytime she got on camera, I just could not stop looking at those eyebrows. And Stacy is just so unserious. At one point, she talks about her special foot talent.
You want to know a special talent of mine?
Yes.
Like, I could look at your feet and just guess your shoe size. 99% of the time, I could guess it.
Really?
Yeah.
Is this just a creative way to say you have a foot fetish? But I will give it to Stacy. Stacy and Izzy do have a connection and there is some sexual chemistry there, and anytime they're in the pods, they do have a good time. But this should have been a red flag to Izzy. At one point, Izzy even says,
I can tell you're the fun girl when you're out.
And this should have been a red flag to Izzy because in general, when guys go into these pods, they need to go in thinking who is ready to be a wife, not who can I have fun with. And yes, dating is supposed to be fun, and I feel like a lot of it should be lighthearted, but at the same time, you cannot be afraid to get into the nitty-gritty as well. And later on, Izzy and Stacy have another date, and Izzy tells Stacy that he goes deeper with other women, and Stacy responds that she likes being the fun one. And at one point, Stacy writes Izzy this whack-ass poem.
Oh, Izzy, the words you say sometimes put me in a tizzy. So much so I need a cocktail filled with something fizzy. I'd rather stay in a pod with you than go take a whizzy.
And us as an audience, we're left wondering when they're actually gonna go deeper. It's possible that Izzy and Stacy did go deeper and production just didn't show it because they want to tell a storyline, but from what we saw as an audience, they never got deep. And then later on, Izzy and Stacy are in the pods, and Izzy is wondering if Stacy will ever drop the L word, and Stacy responds, the L word is on her mind and she's falling in love, but she's not ready to say it. And she also says, my body's not well conditioned to this emotional stuff. That is a red flag the size of Texas. Izzy should not be proposing to someone who's unwilling to even say, I love you. So of course, after seeing all those red flags, Izzy still continues to propose to Stacy and they get engaged, and their proposal was just so unserious. And when Stacy and Izzy meet in person for the first time, it was fine, but their meeting was a little awkward. It's very clear that Izzy feels like he won the jackpot, he got the most beautiful girl, etc. But Stacy doesn't feel the same way. Stacy is happy that she's chosen. And it's possible that she's also happy because she was chosen over other women, but I will say I do not think that was her motive, was just to win. And we will just have to see when they go to Mexico if this can blossom further, but I don't know if Stacy will be able to get there with Izzy. Also, multiple people in the house feel like Stacy and Izzy are gonna crash and burn so quickly, and they were vocal about it, and I agree. I do not think Stacy and Izzy are gonna work out. And lastly, to wrap up this love square, let's talk about Izzy and Johnie. Johnie is a 30-year-old lawyer, and she so far has been the most interesting contestant for me, and I hope somehow she makes it to Mexico or we can see more of her later in the season. And first thing I want to say about Johnie before I drag her is I am loving her fashions. This red dress is cute, this little jumper is cute, and this dress she wore too was really cute too. I am just gagging over her fashions. And I don't know what it is, but I just really like her style. So from the jump, Izzy and Johnie have a strong connection, but I will say their one-on-ones come across as a little therapy-ish. It's definitely not as fun as Stacy and Izzy, but there's definitely a lot more depth. And when we're introduced to Johnie, she has a really emotional confessional, and she says that her mom told her maybe a relationship isn't for you. And Johnie took this very personally, and she very much took it as she wasn't deserving as love. But I don't think that's what her mom meant, because Johnie says she's had multiple previous partners with addiction issues, and there's been a pattern in her relationships. And not only does she recognize the pattern, her mom saw this pattern as well. And due to this pattern of poor partners, her mom was like, maybe a relationship isn't for you. And I don't see that as a bad thing. Her mom is telling her to choose peace and to be single. And I think her mom would rather her live a peaceful existence than dealing with an guy with an addiction. And I don't think her mom thinks she's not deserving of love. She just doesn't want to see her daughter continue to get in these patterns with terrible guys. And to me, that's normal for a parent. Anyways, Johnie and Izzy connect, and I think their connection is very strong. And some of y'all may drag me in the comments, but I think Izzy should have chose Johnie. And hear me out. I think Izzy should have chose Johnie, but Johnie also would have been okay if she chose Chris. Next, if you made it this far in the video, please go ahead and pound that like button for the YouTube algorithm. So Izzy and Johnie have a strong connection, and they definitely open up with one another. Izzy talks about growing up Jehovah's Witness, finding out his dad was not his biological father, and he opens up about his insecurities about being judged based on his appearance. And Johnie also opens up to him about her previous exes. So Johnny's love story is wild. So basically, Johnie fell in love with this guy, and she was with him for a while, but they ended up breaking up due to his addiction issues. So after that, Johnie found another man. They ended up getting married, and then she eventually went to law school about 2 years after her breakup with her first love. And while she's in law school, she gets a random message from a friend on Facebook, and she finds out that her first love overdosed and died. And at this point, things started to get rocky with her current husband, because she realized her husband is a rebound guy and she was not in love with him. And after Johnie opens up like this, Izzy immediately gets scared, and you can tell this is just way too much for him. But this is Johnny's past. She can't erase her past. And let me just say, I applaud Johnie for opening up like this and being so vulnerable like this, because this is what makes reality TV good, when they do not hold back like this. And I want to applaud Johnie again, because Johnie married the rebound guy, and she realized she was not in love with the rebound guy, and she ended up getting divorced. And this may sound bad, but I applaud her for admitting that to herself and divorcing the guy. First of all, pretty much half of all marriages in the United States end in divorce. And remember, there are tons and tons of unhappy marriages where people just stay. And I applaud Johnie just because she recognized he was the rebound guy, and instead of staying and being unhappy and not fully being herself with her ex, she decided to leave. Because a lot of people will just stay in that marriage and be unhappy because they are too scared of being single again. And when Izzy heard this story, it completely scared him, and he told Johnie that he feels like she's never going to be able to love someone again like she did with her first love. And Izzy basically shuts down after hearing all of this, and Johnie responds,
"You're not giving me anything, and I'm giving you everything."
This should have been a huge red flag for Johnie. Johnie poured out her heart and soul and told Izzy the complete truth about her past, and then Izzy shuts down and gives her nothing. This should have been a red flag for Johnie that Izzy is not the one. Whenever Izzy is confronted with an obstacle in a relationship, he runs and bails or shuts down. And that's not something you want in a partner. And I do think if Izzy gave Johnie more of a chance, they could have worked through this and he would have gotten better at overcoming obstacles in relationships, but he didn't give her a chance. So Izzy ends up breaking up with Johnie, and Johnie was torn up about this breakup. And she was a little petty.
Like, Izzy told me he had a bad credit score. He just signed a lease somewhere else. Like, he doesn't seem ready for commitment.
That was funny. She really called out him having a bad credit score after he broke up with her. And to make it even worse, Johnie was also dating another guy named Chris, and she ended things with Chris before Izzy ended things with her. Chris is a 27-year-old project manager, and he dates and ends up falling for Johnie, and it's clear that they have a connection and they're very much on the same wavelength. And in the midst of Johnie dating Izzy, she's also dating Chris. She feels like Chris is the safe and secure choice. And like I said before, if Johnie had chosen Chris, I think she would have been equally as happy. Johnie dating Izzy has that excitement and that spark and that feeling that Johnie had from her first love, and she really just does not get that from Chris. Now with Johnie, it's really tough to tell what's going on. It feels like she's possibly chasing emotionally unavailable guys, but also at the same time, maybe she just doesn't have that spark with Chris. And this is where that leap of faith just comes in. Johnie has to make a decision and take a leap of faith and see what happens. And she took that leap of faith with Izzy, and it was the wrong choice. And this is just my personal opinion. Whether or not she ended up with Izzy or Chris, I think she would have been happy. Like, I think in two parallel worlds, both of those things can be okay. With Izzy, she has that excitement and spark and hot and heavy in the beginning that probably fades over time. But with Chris, I think it would have been a more slow burn type of romance. And I think she would have been happy with either. They're just different. It's not necessarily that one is better than the other. So anyways, Johnie ends up breaking up with Chris, and she goes all in on Izzy. And when she broke up with Chris, I felt so bad for this man. But the only thing I did not understand about this is, why did Johnie break up with Chris before knowing that everything was set with Izzy? So if you watch season 4, definitely Micah was considered one of the villains, but one thing I will give to her is that she played the game. She strung along Paul and Kwame as long as she possibly could, and I don't understand why Johnie didn't do the same thing. Like, Johnny's not being strategic. And yes, this show is about love and it is an experiment, but also it helps to have a little bit of strategy. So after Izzy breaks up with Johnie, Johnie tries to get back with Chris, and she has a moment where she's like rationalizing it in her head. Johnie felt like she made the wrong choice by her chasing Izzy. She was continuing her pattern of chasing emotionally unavailable men. She very much was trying to rationalize getting back with Chris. And I think she should have just taken the L and just left alone. But in her defense, from a reality TV standpoint, this is better for her to try to rekindle things with Chris because it's just so messy and it's very entertaining for us as an audience. So Johnie tries to rekindle things with Chris, and Chris tells her that he needs some time to think about it. So he goes back to the guy side of the house and talks it through with some of the other guys, including Izzy. And this was very interesting. This is like the first time on the show that the guys have really dug into the women like this. Like usually on the guy side of the house, sometimes the guys will ask other guys for advice, but this is the first time a guy has asked advice from another guy that they were both dating, and specifically getting into the nitty-gritty about things said on the dates. That has never happened before, and this was very interesting. Now, me personally, if I was Chris, I would not go ask Izzy for his advice and opinion on things. For me, I can't have too many voices in my head when I'm trying to make a serious decision like this, but that's just me. But anyways, when Chris talks to the other guys and Izzy, he reaches the conclusion that Johnie told Izzy one thing and he's telling Chris another thing. Chris ends up thinking about it, and Chris goes on another date with Johnie and drops her like a hot tamale. He decides he does not want to push forward with their relationship, and he wishes her the best of luck. And this was the right decision. When Johnie and Chris were in the pods, Johnie tells Chris specifically that when they're together, the excitement was not quite there as she had with Izzy. And Chris responded to her, "I want someone to be excited for me." And I think Chris made the right choice by not giving her a second chance, because it's like, you're not even excited about me. And that's all I got on Johnie and Chris. If you made it this far in the video, please pound that like button. Next up, I want to take a quick break from these messy relationships and talk about some of the beautiful men that did not make the cut. First is Carter. So I thought Carter was really hot, and I'm sad we could not see more of him. He was bald, he had a beard, he was a 30-year-old fisherman, and he had that Texas accent with a super deep voice. Like, he was definitely hitting a lot of points for me, and I'm really upset we didn't get to see more of him. Next, there was a white guy named Justice. And he was really cute. Like, I really wish we could have seen more of him. I'm curious why his parents named him Justice. Maybe he's half black. And then there was also a guy in the house named Robert, and I swear he had a lace front. Let me know below in the comments, but I'm pretty sure this is a lace front. Next, let's talk about Lydia and Milton. So after the breakup with Izzy, Lydia confides more in Milton. And initially, Lydia had completely written off Milton because he was too young. He's 24 and I believe she's 30. But Lydia writing him off totally defeats the purpose of the experiment. You're not supposed to focus on age, race, looks, etc. And her immediately writing him off due to his age defeats the purpose of the experiment. And just in general, Netflix does not have the manpower to really monitor all of these conversations and make sure they don't say anything that's based on looks. But anyways, Milton has very much an 80s inspired look. He very much looks like Tory Lanez in the Lady of Namek video. Hashtag free Tory Lanez. And yes, I know Tory Lanez was inspired by possibly someone else from the 80s, but I don't really like 80s music, so I don't know who exactly Tory was copying in this video. But anyways, back to Milton, and this is gonna sound very shady, but it's not meant to be shady. Y'all, Milton is a 5, but he could easily be a 9. So hear me out. If Milton got a haircut, got rid of that mustache, he gained like maybe 15 pounds of muscle, and he changed up his clothes and maybe got like a tattoo or some glasses or something, he could easily go from a 5 to a 9. And this Jerry curl with the bad shape up to the side is just really not it. His hair has been killing me through this show so far. And I don't know exactly how tall Milton is, but he's really tall. And let's be real, most women will overlook a lot of things if you're super tall. So if he just changes up a few things, he could easily go from a 5 to a 9. Anyways, so Milton and Lydia's connection was nothing extraordinary. They honestly just nerded out together, and she confided in him after things didn't work with Izzy. And one of the tough things about this show is that if you have a breakup, there's virtually like no time to heal. You still have to continue dating and try to find love, or you have to leave the experiment. And when it comes to Lydia and Milton, not much happened, and it's pretty clear that they're probably going to get engaged, but they have not gotten engaged yet. But there are a couple things I want to mention. Milton at one point says that he's a professional Pokemon player and the women love that. But I was just like, if women love that, then why are you here on Love is Blind? Wouldn't you have been able to get a girlfriend outside of this show? And Milton at one point also says that he's not gonna live a long time due to his height and like some prior medical history. And I was not sure if that was just dark humor or if he was being serious. Like, I really couldn't tell. If you know, let me know below in the comments. And one last thing I want to mention with Milton. At one point, Uche and Milton were having a one-on-one, and Uche was telling Milton, you do not have to get engaged in here. And I was mad at Uche. Uche, you better let this 24-year-old ruin his life on reality TV. Like, if he doesn't get engaged, we're about to not have a show. And Lydia, for the most part, was just kind of annoying, and we find out she just lacks a little bit of self-awareness. And at the same time, she's also kind of full of herself. And she eventually admits to Milton that she previously dated Uche, which we are going to talk about shortly. And Milton takes this very hard because on the guy's side of the house, he's friends with Uche, and it's not clear if Milton is going to be able to move forward from this. Next, let's talk about Uche and Aaliyah. Uche is a 34-year-old lawyer, but I think he works in tech or something somehow. And Aaliyah is a 30-year-old ICU travel nurse. And please do not drag me in the comments, but something about Uche is just really adorable to me. I can't put my finger on it, but just something about him is really adorable. But also at the same time, Uche is also very much a bro. And when Uche and Aaliyah go on their first date, it didn't feel like a date to me. It felt more like a networking event, and they have a lot in common, but I wasn't really seeing like a huge connection there. It was very much like,
Oh my god, you like spoken word? I like spoken word.
Oh my god, you like playing guitar? I like playing guitar too.
their relationship was very much that. Like, they have things in common, but I wasn't necessarily feeling the connection with them. So then Uche and Aaliyah go deep, and Uche asks Aaliyah if she's cheated before, and Aaliyah admits she did have a past of cheating. And when Aaliyah talks about this, she is very honest and she gives truthful answers. And this conversation was very tough to watch because it almost felt like Aaliyah was on trial and Uche was just being so tough and so cold to her during all these questions. And Uche is the type of guy where he can be like honest to a fault, and it comes across as very harsh, and he lacks a little bit of sensitivity when dealing with the opposite sex. And then after they finish this conversation, Uche gets mad over the fact that Aaliyah even told him this and told her all the details. But that's dumb because Uche, you asked the question. Uche very much put Aaliyah in a double bind, and she was damned if she did and damned if she didn't. Early in the conversation, Uche said he always wants honesty and honesty is important to him. But then later on, he says that he wished that Aaliyah had withheld the information and didn't provide all the details regarding her cheating with a previous ex. But to me, withholding information is the exact same thing as lying. So to me, if Aaliyah withheld the details that you specifically asked for, that would be lying, and if you found out, you would get mad. And I totally understand Uche's point of view in this. He's about to propose to someone, he's interested in getting married, and a previous history of cheating is very much a red flag. But Uche very much just has to decide if he can move past this and take a leap of faith that she learned from this previous cheating experience and that she'll never do it again. That's something that Uche either needs to take a risk or not take a risk. And sidebar, at one point Aaliyah is wearing some pajamas on a date with Uche, and these pajamas were really cute. So then later on we get our first gag of the season. Uche tells Aaliyah that he was not completely honest, and he tells Aaliyah that he previously dated Lydia. Now this was the absolute gag because Aaliyah confided with Lydia on the woman's side of the house. And to find out that Lydia had previously dated Uche looked straight up like betrayal. So then we get some previous footage of in the pods with Uche and Lydia together. And when they first go to the pods, Lydia immediately clocks Uche and knows exactly who it is, but Uche didn't know at first. So Lydia eventually reveals who she is, and they consider giving their relationship another go, but they decide against it because it would ruin the experiment. Now, this just shows how messy and sloppy Netflix is and how they're more concerned about having drama than staying true to the experiment. And honestly, I don't even know why they call it an experiment in the first place. They should just call it a dating show. But the moment Netflix found out that Uche and Lydia knew one another and they previously dated, they both should have been pulled from the experiment. But instead of pulling them from the experiment, Netflix let both of them stay, and then they were able to reveal that they knew each other, but they weren't able to reveal it until later on, which is just so messy. Now, Aaliyah got mad at Uche, but she was not mad at Lydia, and this did not make sense to me. Both Uche and Lydia lied, likely due to production, and then they kept the information a secret until they could release it. So why are you mad at Uche but not mad at Lydia? That does not make sense to me. And when it comes to Aaliyah, she has every right to be mad at production, at Lydia, and at Uche. But if I was Aaliyah, I would be really pissed at Lydia. I feel like all around Lydia just cannot be trusted. Lydia confided and consoled in Aaliyah, and I'm pretty sure she knew that she was dating Uche. For Lydia to go through the experiment and just continue to confide and console in Aaliyah, knowing she's dating Uche, was just so messy to me. Lydia, knowing that she previously dated Uche, she should have been cool with Aaliyah, but she didn't need to try to become besties with her. And because she did that, I just feel like she cannot be trusted. And again, the confusing part for me is that Aaliyah's friendship with Lydia means so much and means a lot to her, but I don't understand why this friendship is so important to her. She just met this girl like a week ago. Anyways, so in the next gag, Aaliyah ends up completely dropping from the experiment altogether. And this was such a rookie move. Some of y'all may drag me in the comments, but I don't care. Aaliyah, you literally missed a free, all-expense paid vacation to Mexico. So I totally get it. Production did you dirty, but you were literally 2 days away from a free vacation in Mexico. And Netflix splurges a lot of money on these vacations. Like, they get them really nice suites, all expenses paid, and it is like a once-in-a-lifetime vacation. And I do think Aaliyah should have just kept going with the experiment and gotten the vacation. And yeah, she may have had to fight with Lydia in Mexico, but whatever, there would have been endless margaritas. And as we've seen in the previews, Aaliyah does come back to have a conversation with Uche, but it's so silly because I'm like, girl, you could have had a conversation in Mexico on a beach in your swimsuit, but now you're gonna have a conversation probably stuck in Texas. And no shade to Texas, I absolutely love Texas, but if you can have a tough conversation on a paid beach vacation, I'd rather have a tough conversation there than back at home. And finally, the last couple I want to talk about is Taylor and JP, and this will be very quick. While they're in the pods, Taylor and JP have a connection. It's slow, but it's very natural. And I absolutely love JP's voice. JP just has this very sexy, deep voice, and that Texas accent, I absolutely love it. And they open up to one another very quickly. They talk about kids and marriage. JP is a firefighter, and Taylor is a kindergarten teacher. So far, it sounds like they're just going to be the classic all-American Texas couple. And one thing I do want to point out is JP is like having a one-on-one with one of the guys on the guy's side of the house. And he talks about the fact that he brought up sex, but they did not dwell on it at all. Like, Taylor moved past that quickly and they really tried to get to know each other. And I love to hear that because that's what the experiment is about. Because for the most part this season, a lot of these contestants did not stay true to the experiment. And I love that Taylor made a conscious effort to stay true to the experiment and she actually found someone. JP ends up proposing to Taylor and they meet, and when they meet, their meeting is a little awkward, but I do think part of this is editing, but I do think there is a connection. So in general, this is just one of the couples. They're very cute and some of the other contestants are probably going to confide in them because they're not messy. And while they were in the pods, they weren't dealing with a bunch of other love triangles. But once we get out of the pods, we learn that JP is very shy, or he's very quiet, or just both. And based on the conversations they were having in the pods, Taylor already expected this, but he's definitely more quiet than she expected. So we'll just have to see if they work out. And I'm leaning more towards, I think JP is just really quiet, because if he was really shy, I don't think he would have been able to go on this show in the first place. And sidebar, JP kind of looks like a blonder version of the guy from Wonder Years. And that is all I got for this review. If you enjoyed this review, please go ahead and pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell, and I will see you all next time. Have a good one. Bye.